I think that was a great impulse to start our panel discussion, and I'm also very happy that we have such a great, diverse panel to discuss the topic of digitalization from the perspective of the developing country. So I'd like to introduce the panelists to you: Mark Graham, Amel Zaidan, Dorothy Gordon, and you already met David Precht. Please. Ja. Einer von den Herren. It's great to have you here. I will just shortly introduce the panelists so that you have an idea what their perspective is. I will start. Welcome Mark Graham. He's Professor of Internet Geography at the Oxford Internet Institute. His research focuses on the intersection of Internet and economic development. He has conducted field research on platform work and development in Africa and Asia, and is also collaborating with the BMZ regarding the Fair Work Foundation. I also welcome Amel Zaidan. She's president of Tunisian Startups, an association that networks young entrepreneurs in Tunisia and beyond, and supports them and works also on a beneficial digital ecosystem. In addition, Amel is also co-founder of SeedStars Tunisia, a company that promotes young entrepreneurs with technical ideas. And I'd like to welcome Dorothy Gordon from Ghana. She's technology activist and development specialist. She's also founder of the Ghana-India Kofi Annan Center of Excellence in ICT. She advises private sector players on capacity building, digital inclusion, and startup promotion. And her current work is on information and communication technology and how it can be used independently and positively by developing countries. Welcome. And you already met and heard his ideas, David Precht. He will also represent a global philosophical perspective and the perspective of the developed country in our panel. I would like to start to ask you a quite broad question. What does a digital transformation of work mean to you, your working environment, and you personally? Amel, do you want to start?
Yeah, why not? So I think digital transformation is a redistribution of power, of wealth, all over the world. It's a redefinition of cooperation and competition. And the digital transformation of the world of work is actually a profound change in the way we work today, including a change, a transformation of the skills required, of the way we produce, we distribute goods, the way we cooperate, the way we compete. And I think it's an amazing opportunity to have this dialogue, especially with the MENA lens, because the challenges and opportunities are different on that side of the world. And it's really depending if you look at the demographics of the region and also the economics of the region. So if you look at the demographics, for example, you'll find a region with an important youth bulge. So the people from 15 to 29 are 30% of the population of Tunisia. 30% of youth is unemployed, and the more you get educated, the more unemployment your chances grow to get unemployed. So the unemployment of graduates is somewhere around 43% for women, for example. So the challenges are completely different. And if you look at the economics perspective, you'll see, for example, that like 2/3 of the jobs are going to be automated. So all this is speculative, but this says already something. And I like the examples that have been picked up by Dr. Bornemann about the agriculture and textiles. So if you look at the economics of agriculture, it's an important sector that plays a role of buffer for employment and for social stability. And it's particularly an opportunity in the digital transformation, because it could help. Digital transformation could help with the scarcity of arable land, of water, that is really a big challenge in this area of the world. And if you look at the textiles, for example, if you consider Tunisia, 40% of the exports of Tunisia are in textiles and are towards Europe. Textiles is employing 70% of people in Egypt. So the question is, if Europe is going to be to go for sew robots instead of humans, what's going to happen with these guys? So there is a big strategic decision to be taken. And if people are going to print 3D shoes, what are shoe manufacturers going to do? So digital transformation is, for me, actually a big sense of urgency for these countries, this part of the world. And it's a big strategic decision and discussion that has to take place because people are scared in the US and Europe about the loss of 47% of the jobs. And I'm not sure people in MENA are scared at all because I'm not sure they're aware what kind of challenges they are facing.
Thank you. Mark, against the background of your field research, what we heard the video, and the videos and the answers were quite positive. What is the experience regarding digital transformation of work in your research and your field research?
Thanks. I think this is an important year to talk about the digital transformation of work, because 2018, it's the first year we have on record where we have more people connected to the internet than not connected to the internet. So all of this new growth in internet users, it's coming from low-income countries and middle-income countries. People are coming online, and as we saw in those videos, people are, in many cases, very happy to escape some of the constraints of their local labor markets. If you're a transcriber or a translator in Nairobi, some of those people we saw, there's limited opportunities for you in Nairobi, but you get on one of these online work platforms and all of a sudden the world's your oyster. So we have to start thinking about what we're doing as fundamentally transforming what a labor market means. We're creating what you might think of as a planetary scale labor market. And this planetary scale labor market, it gives a lot of people jobs, it gives people income, it gives people autonomy, it gives people flexibility. However, as people are rushing into this online planetary scale labor market, we have to remember that lots of people are doing this, right? So those guys are getting on this labor market, but so too are millions of other people. And what this creates is essentially a massive oversupply of labor power on these platforms. And then you have some countries where there's hundreds of thousands of people who sign up for these platforms, and only a few thousand of those people ever manage to find any jobs. And even fewer people manage to regularly find any jobs on these platforms. So you get this huge oversupply of labor power on these platforms. What that then drives is not just some positive outcomes that we heard about, but also quite a few negative outcomes. So precarity is almost, by definition, a part of the platform economy. Overwork. In our research, we spoke to hundreds of workers throughout Asia and Africa. And a really common story was people staying up for multiple days on end without sleeping because they're worried about jeopardizing their reputation scores. Because if you have this oversupply of labor and you're a worker, if you have anything less than a 5-star average score, you're not going to get work. Because if you're a client in Germany or elsewhere and you're outsourcing work, why would you hire someone with a 4.7 average score or 4.8 average score? You're going to hire someone with a 5-star average score. So the workers are terrified of sabotaging this score in any way, and so they'll do things like stay up for multiple days on end. And then in some cases because again, driven by this oversupply of labor, there's a lot of vulnerability that we see. So if you're a worker doing something like content moderation, looking at videos of beheadings or animal cruelty or something like that, there's no way you can ask your boss for counseling or support because there's other workers that can very quickly replace you if you make any kind of fuss.
Thank you. Dorothy Gordon, what is the situation in Ghana, speaking of digital transformation? Do you agree on the experience Mark did during his field research?
Well, yes and no. I think that we've hit on a few interesting themes already. First of all, Amal said that digital transformation indicates some transformation in terms of power structure. Right now, we are seeing more and more of a monopolization and control by major platforms. So, and those platforms are situated in the old core power areas. So we haven't really seen that. So as developing countries, you are feeling a new kind of dependency on those who are in control of your digital environment. Whether or not it's something as benign as Wikipedia being the place to go for information, it's still monopolization. And we see that especially when we look at how certain companies mediate their experience, because for many people in developing countries, they can't afford to go online. The bandwidth may be there, but the cost is high. And so they are forced to go for platforms which reduce their experience because those platforms are free. But I think that our philosopher mentioned energy. Energy is a big factor. If you look at Ghana today, we see that we have a negative job growth because we had problems in the energy sector, and so the manufacturing sector, which was already not so big, lost a lot of jobs, and our population is even more extreme than Tunisia. More than 50% are below the age of 25. So you have a huge youth demographic. You're already losing jobs in the economy, and you need to find jobs for these young people. So what are you going to do? And that is why we see that a lot more emphasis than before is being given to how we can grow our digital economy. And this map, which you see up there, is linked to the World Summit Awards, which recognizes the best in digital content. And the countries with the stars are countries which have had global winners. So you see that it's not evenly distributed at all. You see that there are huge blank spaces in Africa. And if you do a bit of analysis, you see it's very related to language. If most of the French-speaking countries in West Africa have not had winners, the Portuguese-speaking countries haven't had winners. And so the dominance of English in terms of the digital economy works in favor of countries like Ghana. Mm-hmm. So we see that there's a lot of change happening, huge challenge just because of the demographic. But whether or not we're making best use of the opportunities, I think this is something we'll be discussing as we go along.
Thank you. Richard David Precht, when I understood you correctly, you are on a lot of conferences about digitalization, but the perspective of the developing countries just doesn't take place, or people are not aware, people are not discussing the topic. Why is it? Why is it that the German discourse on digitalization totally ignores that there's also a perspective outside our bubble, outside the industrialized world?
Wir haben in Deutschland die Digitalisierungsdiskussion immer im technisch-ökonomischen Kontext geführt bislang. Und wir haben versucht, sie nicht zu einem großen öffentlichen Thema zu machen, aus Angst, die Leute zu beunruhigen. Wir haben ja weder über die sozialen Konsequenzen in einem reichen Land wie Deutschland gesprochen, noch über die globalen Konsequenzen. Beides ist bisher aus der Diskussion ausgeklammert. Jetzt fangen wir ganz, ganz langsam an, uns die Frage zu stellen, was sind die Herausforderungen, die auf unseren Sozialstaat zukommen, was macht das mit der Arbeitswelt bei uns? Und es wäre dann der nächste Schritt, das noch weiter auszuweiten, und der wird lange nicht erfolgen, weil damit machen wir den Leuten richtig Angst. Also natürlich ist es klar, es gibt junge Menschen in Afrika, für die ist es großartig, Internetzugang zu haben. Die haben bessere Möglichkeiten, wenn sie was können, auch wahrgenommen zu werden. Aber insgesamt stimmt natürlich auch, was Sie gesagt haben. Es sind große Monopolisten, die das anbieten. Es ist nicht unbedingt eine Form von tatsächlicher Entwicklungshilfe, weil die Leute, die die technische Entwicklung vorantreiben und die Leute, die sich um das Sozialleben Gedanken machen, nicht die gleichen sind. Ja, also auf der einen Seite haben wir die Techniker und die Ökonomie des Internets und auf der anderen Seite haben wir die ganzen gesellschaftlichen Probleme. Und die sind natürlich in Afrika nicht geringer als bei uns, sondern im Zweifelsfall größer. Also das ist ein Bruch mit Traditionen. In einem Land die Menschen freie kommunizieren zu lassen, stellt ja im Zeitalter von Fake News und vielem anderen oder von Bildern, die man auf Instagram stellt, auch in die Entwicklungsländer vor genau solche Herausforderungen wie die westlichen Länder, nur dass im Grunde genommen der Kulturbruch zum Teil noch sehr viel härter und radikaler ist. Das wird natürlich auch Widerstand machen, das wird ethnisch natürlich genutzt. Also all diese Probleme, die wir auch haben, die werden natürlich dort genauso kommen. Wir können es nicht nur als technische Innovation und als Befreiung sehen, sondern wir müssen sehen, dass es ein Kulturbruch ist, dass eine neue Zeit anfängt, dass es eine rasante Beschleunigung ist in eine Globalgesellschaft für Gesellschaften, in denen sich nur ein kleiner Teil der Bevölkerung überhaupt von der Globalgesellschaft etwas versprechen kann. Was ich glaube ist, wir müssen ohnehin gegenüber den Entwicklungsländern eine völlig neue Politik machen. Ich fordere seit langer Zeit ein einseitiges Freihandelsabkommen. Also es ist absolut wichtig, dass die Länder in Afrika die Möglichkeit haben müssen, ihre Produkte in Europa zollfrei zu verkaufen, aber alle für ihre Wirtschaft nötigen Zölle auf europäische Produkte zu erheben. Das ist nicht die Lösung von allem. Aber ich möchte, dass wir die Digitalisierungsdiskussion nicht isoliert führen von dieser grundsätzlichen ökonomischen Diskussion, sondern dass wir diese beiden Diskussionen miteinander verlinken. Und dass wir Kommunikation und Freiheit und neue Lebensmöglichkeiten nicht isoliert von den Ländern sehen, in denen sie tatsächlich passieren und was das für diese Länder jeweils bedeutet. Sonst geraten wir in eine Art Fortschrittsfaschismus, der davon ausgeht, dass sagt, dass alles, was digital und global ist, grundsätzlich gut ist und alles, das sozusagen ethnisch und kulturell überliefert, schlecht ist.
Thank you. And you already went from the challenges, we were already picturing to possible solutions. And since we don't have so much time as we would need to really discuss this topic, I would like to discuss with you at the end of our panel what are possible solutions also from your work. Amel, you're heading Tunisian startups. What are you doing? What are a possible solution for young technical Tunisian entrepreneurs?
Yeah, there are amazing stories about what's going on right now in the startup ecosystems in the Arab countries and the MENA countries, and there are cool stories that are being looked at from the international media and researchers from Europe about that movement. For instance, in Tunisia, the young entrepreneurs who have taken responsibility of their ecosystem and have pushed a legal framework for startups, some kind of unfair advantages for startups. But what's going on right now is that the startup thing is being a little bit overridden. So it's like the politics are pushing startups as the magical solutions for all odds, for unemployment issues, because it's a trendy and cool topic. And but startups are not yet strong enough to solve the problems of unemployment. They're not strong enough to change the way public administration and industries work. So what we need to do in our countries is have a look at the bigger picture. And I'm lucky enough to be part of an initiative called Digital Arabian Network, initiated by the amazing Bassam Helmi and Professor Ayad Al-Ani. It's born actually here in Berlin, and the cool thing about it is that it's initiating the dialogue in the community of the digital community in the Arab countries, but also creating a dialogue between Europe and the MENA region. So when we talk digitalization, we talk actually about these big platforms. Then the platforms that allow the distribution of goods and connecting producers of goods with the consumers. We're integrating new work packages that will allow a new way of using these goods. But what we notice here is that what we notice today is that there is no single big Arab platform, for example, and that this means that Arab enterprises or MENA enterprises will be only providers of suppliers for these platforms, and therefore they will have no access to the data, and which makes the game changes the game completely. And if we are talking about large platforms, so typically, we are talking about the new trends in technology. We're talking about artificial intelligence, blockchain, and these are very costly technologies in terms of implementation. So if we, it should be actually an advantage for state-dominated countries, because this could be something that could be initiated by the states. If you look at China, for example, and all the progress that's happening in China. But unfortunately, there is no progress in this front in the Arab countries. So there is no effort that is being done on that front. Maybe because this kind of platform require an open way of doing things and collaboration, and the Arab states are not really ready to collaborate and talk within each other, so let alone of building some kind of digital Arab sphere. So we'll end up finding these countries as consumer or integrated into global platforms, and ending up with the disadvantages of this kind of movement. So what we should do as the first thing is maybe support Arab countries, MENA countries, to strategically think of digitalization as an opportunity, to redefine their role as a state, and to be positioned as the digital partner state that empowers people through open knowledge commons, through open platforms that enhances, that promotes the startup movement, the contribution of all citizens through open innovation platforms, etc. Maybe we need to think of initiatives that will help people find an opportunity in their own countries where value needs to be created there, especially in MENA countries where the tech capabilities are amazing. Upgrade the skills so that people can deliver services for Europe, but however still create value in their own countries. So this goes through a lot of training, upscaling, but also through engaging into a dialogue where MENA countries are also thinking, contributing in the thinking process and not only implementing. So that's why this kind of initiatives where we all think together for the future of the global, on the global scale, is so important, and this needs to happen now. So we need to act, yes, but we need also to think, because these countries are not thinking yet, and the gap is growing amazingly.
Thank you. Amel already covered a lot of very important topics. That's why I would like to you very specifically perhaps tell us a bit about the Fair Work Foundation, where you also collaborate with the BMZ.
Thanks. So we're with support from the BMZ, we're starting what we're calling the Fair Work Foundation. And the idea behind this thing is that we see all these problems in the platform economy, and we see issues that workers are suffering through. And we essentially have a situation where platforms are pretty unregulated, worker unions are almost non-existent, and the platforms themselves, they seem to want the rewards of the gig economy without any of the responsibilities that might come with it. And so the starting point for this initiative is that it's not good enough to simply say that the problems that we see are just the workers' problems. We think that the platforms, the clients, the consumers, and governments should all share some sort of, or at least acknowledge some sort of moral responsibility for these issues that we see. So we're just starting this Fair Work Foundation idea. Think of it a bit like, I'm sure you've heard of the Fair Trade Foundation that certifies the commodity chains of things like coffee or chocolate in order to let consumers know that there's an ethical production process behind them. So we want to apply this sort of idea to the platform economy. We want to think about pressure points that we can use to encourage platforms to take on some of this moral responsibility that I was talking about, and also discourage platforms that don't do this. Specifically, what we want to do is set minimum standards in the platform economy that platforms or workers don't fall beneath. So think about things like living wages, action against wage theft, action against discrimination, and protection against harmful work activities. And we want to do two things with this. So first of all, talk to workers, talk to policymakers, talk to platforms in order to collectively decide what these minimum standards should be. So what do workers themselves think fair and unfair work looks like? And then for us, as the Fair Work Foundation, to impose these minimum standards on the platforms. So to give a certification to platforms that achieve these minimum standards, that pay their workers a fair wage, for instance, and then also come up with an annual ranking where we sift through the best to the worst platforms on these issues. We're just starting this year. We're piloting this in India and South Africa, but we ultimately hope to expand it because the platform economy is global, to expand this globally.
Thank you, Mark. Since we are unfortunately already slowly running out of time, I would suggest that I give the last word to Dorothy, and who is interested in more from Richard David Precht. He will be also outside after our session signing his book. So last but not least, Dorothy Gordon, when you're thinking of Ghana, what would be the next step to have not as fine a solution, but to work on the topic and to go ahead?
I think that one of the things that we see in Ghana is that even though I believe there's a lot more we can do in terms of building skills, we already see that people are coming to Ghana to pick up good developers. We have a very active startup ecosystem. But the real issues are not with the innovation that goes into create a startup. The real issue is how do you grow that business from being a startup which is like a firework, it flares in the air, lots of brightness, and then it sinks rapidly, to actually having a sustained light out of that, having something that is going to be creating more and more jobs, more and more opportunities. And we've realized that we need to have more mentoring. Longer-term mentoring. So you see in Germany you have a critical mass of people who are working in the tech sector who can be supportive of each other. We have to figure how to create that critical mass in Africa and make it so that there's a support network for our companies. Dr. Bornemann talked about the demand coming from outside. I want to stress that there's a lot of demand for digital services internally, even if it was just the digitization of government, e-government solutions. And we find that when it's e-government solutions, we find that often they are funded by donors, and either they are tied into a company in the donor country, or the procurement guidelines are such that inevitably it will go to a company in a more mature economy, thereby removing the possibility of getting the valuable experience in that project implementation from the local companies. So I think that if we change these things so that we realize that together we are, and of course it's normal because countries are worried about their own jobs. Germany, for example, is worried about losing jobs. So if you're financing something, it should go to create some new jobs, you know, wherever. But Germany is not as bad as some of the donors in this regard. But I think that what's really important is that we recognize there's lots of local demand, there's lots of local talent. Given the platforms that exist today, we can build capacity through and through. I love this initiative on fair work, but I think that really we need to bring initiatives like Republica to countries like Ghana to help us to build that ecosystem. So, I mean, I'm so happy to see the number of people who are here listening to this, and I hope you're going to take that message home.
Thank you very much. I would thank all four of you for this great discussion. I really would love to have more time with you, but I mean, the Republica goes on for 3 more days. I hope we can intensify the discussions. Thank you very much.